Monica was bustling around the kitchen, preparing a celebratory dinner to honor her husband Eric's promotion. He walked in right on time, grinning from ear to ear, and announced that thanks to this promotion, they'd be relocating to the state, capital, and the whole family needed to move sometime in the near future. Monica was over the moon. She'd been dreaming of leaving their tiny hometown, where there was hardly any work for her, and not much of a future for their second-grade son, Vince. The Andersons were a tight-knit, upbeat family. Even though they'd faced their share of challenges, especially having a child so young, Monica and Eric had always treated each other with enormous respect and tenderness. A few days later, they packed up their belongings and headed off to the city. Monica immediately got busy creating a cozy new home, enrolling Vince in the nearest school, and scouting for a job. Meanwhile, Eric jumped right into his new workplace and position, one he'd been aiming for practically his whole life. Finally, they could all breathe easy, feeling super thankful for the changes life had tossed their way. One afternoon, Monica got a phone call from an advertising agency where she'd sent her resume. The manager, who introduced himself as Tony Wilson, invited her to come in for an interview. The second Monica hung up, she practically jumped for joy around the living room. She'd been hoping to get back into the workforce ever since she'd had Vince. He was in second grade now, so she no longer had to watch him every second of the day. Eric was a little bummed at first to hear his wife would be going to work. He was used to seeing her at home whenever he came back in the evenings, but he didn't stand in her way. The next morning, Monica woke up at the crack of dawn, super nervous about her big interview. She flung open her closet and spent a good while choosing the perfect outfit. She wanted to make the best possible impression on her future boss and coworkers. She finally decided on a crisp white blouse and a black skirt, figuring that was classic office attire. A warm spring breeze greeted her the moment she stepped outside to catch her taxi. During the drive, she kept glancing at herself in the rearview mirror, touching up her makeup and making sure she looked flawless. She was beyond anxious. Working at an ad agency had been her dream for ages. Once inside, she noticed there were no women in the office, but she didn't think much of it. Mr. Wilson asked a few questions about her education and previous experience, then said he'd bring her on for a trial period starting the very next day. Monica left the interview so excited she could hardly contain herself. The team turned out to be all guys, but they were respectful and polite. They helped Monica settle in, showed her the ropes, and explained how everything worked. Monica got the hang of things fast, delivering strong results right from the start. Time rolled on, and eventually the agency began preparing for the upcoming holiday season. Tony gathered everyone together one afternoon and announced he'd rented a private lodge out of town for their annual holiday party. When Monica asked if she could bring her husband, though, she was told no. The party was strictly company only. She felt a bit let down, but tried not to dwell on it. In fact, she threw herself into planning a few fun party games for the crew, hoping to make the night memorable. A few days later, after clocking out, Tony ordered a passenger van and the whole team piled in to drive to the lodge. Once they arrived, Monica busied herself making sure the tables were set, while the guys fired up a grill outside to cook steaks. The evening got off to a fun, relaxed start. Everyone was joking around, chatting happily, and joining in on the contests Monica had prepared. But after a couple of hours and a fair bit of alcohol, the vibe shifted fast. The guys started pestering Monica to do a special dance for the fellas, instead of playing more of her kid-friendly games. She brushed it off with a laugh, thinking they were just goofing around. A bit later, as the music picked up, one of the men came up to Monica, got way too close, and started saying crude things while touching her. She pushed him away, shocked, because he'd never acted that way at the office. She assumed he was just wasted and tried to keep things calm. Suddenly, a second guy showed up. Now there were two of them grabbing at her, insisting she dance in a sexy way for them. Monica yelled, hoping the rest of the team would step in and break it up, but then 3 more guys joined in, egging the first 2 on. All of them were demanding she dance for them, minus her clothes. Monica dropped to the floor, covering her face with her hands, praying they'd snap out of it. Instead, they tried to lift her off the floor. That's when she realized she was in serious trouble. They were pushing her toward one of the guest rooms, and she was terrified things could escalate. She kept thinking about her son and husband. How could she ever look them in the eye if the worst happened? She started biting and scratching to break free, and the men just teased her, telling her to save that wild side for the bedroom. They managed to shove her inside the room anyway. By now, the music was pounding so loudly that none of the catering staff could tell what was going on. Monica knew she had to get to a restroom so she could call Eric, but her phone was still in her purse, stashed in the coat room off the main hall. She managed to slip out of the bedroom door and dash downstairs, the men hot on her heels. Downstairs, where part of the group, including Tony, was still hanging out, she locked eyes with them, and their cold stares told her everything she needed to know. Bursting into tears, she sprinted toward the nearest bathroom. A catering cook carrying a dish crossed her path, immediately sensing something was very wrong, and knocked on the bathroom door on his way back. Curled up on the tile floor, Monica realized she was basically trapped. Her phone was upstairs, and going back out there meant facing those men again. The cook grabbed a set of keys, unlocked the bathroom, gently took Monica's hand, and led her out in silence. He could feel her shaking, which confirmed his worst fears. He quickly called a cab, guiding her out through the back exit. Once the taxi arrived, he helped her in and shut the door behind her. Monica sobbed the entire ride home, and the driver refused to charge her. She stumbled into her house in a terrible state, leaving Eric utterly stunned. He wrapped his arms around her, feeling how her heart pounded. Without asking any unnecessary questions, he got them both in the car, and they headed straight to the police station to file a report. Monica underwent a medical exam, her body covered with bruises and scrapes. Her torn clothes told the story all by themselves, and her tear-streaked, swollen face was living proof of the horror she had endured. To her dismay, the medical examiners turned out to be old friends of Tony Wilson's. They claimed they hadn't found any real evidence of wrongdoing, so there was no basis for charges. Eric lost it, furious and ready to handle the matter man to man, but once he cooled off, he understood that if Tony had that kind of pull, vigilante justice wouldn't end well for anyone. They decided their only option was to leave the city and return to their small hometown. A few days later, Monica and Eric went to her workplace, where she handed in her resignation. The guys in the office scattered like rats, avoiding Eric's gaze at all costs. Within a week, the Andersons had packed up and moved back. They figured it was a whole lot better to live more modestly than to force Monica to spend every day in terror, haunted by the memory of that awful night.